So drivers for a middle layer, what is this all about? Well, I see this as being three key drivers. There's appetite for reusing legacy assets, and there's some good reasons for that, right? They've got existing products, the integration works. You can reuse these things rather than going through that heart and lung surgery to rip that out and replace it, avoid all of that risk. And actually, one of the observations here is legacy systems are often cheap to run. They're stable, they work, right? But perhaps they're not in the right place. And that brings us to participating in a digital ecosystem. So one of the things I often say to brokers, MGAs, insurers, vendors to the insurance market is that it's always been an ecosystem. Lots of participants in there, reinsurers, reinsurance brokers, very collaborative industry. But now a lot of that collaboration is happening through APIs, through automation, through machine to machine discussion. And actually, that's part of the key here. So, participating not just in an ecosystem, but a digital ecosystem enabled by APIs, enabling customer engagement, distribution, data enrichment, claims resolution. We'll talk about some of those shortly as well. The third key driver is one that's been around forever and is perpetually there for insurers. They always want to go quicker. So we call this agility, but it's about partly around faster delivery of new propositions to market, reducing cost of that. And actually, once you can go faster and at lower cost with this sort of change, you enable innovation as well. And this is a key enabling capability that insurers are looking for. But there's some challenges, right? Legacy is not good at doing APIs. Legacy systems typically predate some of the APIs, and even relatively modern systems can have APIs that maybe aren't quite up to scratch for a modern digital ecosystem. So there's some tension there between reusing those existing assets, but being a participant in a digital ecosystem. Equally, point number 7 on here, legacy systems were often built before this idea of DevOps. There's lots of engineering discipline that's changed in recent years. As we look at agility, as we look at that speed to market, the arrival of DevOps, increased interest in low and no code solutions as well. We've got faster at building things, and some of these legacy systems were built before many of those innovations came to fruition. So there's a natural tension there in terms of legacy pulls against the agility that we could deliver, but there still feels like there's an opportunity to get that speed, be that participant in a digital ecosystem without having to sacrifice or replace all of those things that we've invested in over the last decades in the insurance industry. So, why are insurers looking at this idea of a middle layer, a middle office? Well, actually, it's partly in response to these drivers. So let's get our arms around what does the insurance middle layer is, what does it do? So, features of a digital insurance middle layer. So it typically fits between digital, that being this ever expanding list of ways that customers want to talk to the insurance industry, and actually suppliers, partners want to talk to insurers, MGAs, brokers, etc. Gone are the days where it was just a website. Now it's a quote and buy website for sales. Maybe it's policy administration through a mobile app. Maybe it's chatbot for claims servicing. Maybe it's through SMS. Maybe it's through direct messages on Twitter or Facebook. Lots and lots of channels coming in this ever expanding set of requirements around digital being flexible and automated in there. At the back, then, we've got this idea of the core. So the core here is there things that administer all of those policies. administer the claims, administer the quotes, make all of this stuff happen, and do that in a regulatory compliant way, which means different things if you're a broker or an MGA or an insurer. But the core is this idea of the engine that runs the business. And the middle tier then serves as the glue between the two, the translation layer, the jam in our sandwich, if you like. So we're going to talk a little bit about how does the middle tier talk to interact with digital. What does it mean between middle tier and core? And then we'll get into the nuts and bolts of those ingredients that go into that middle tier as well. So middle tier to digital is really about RESTful APIs. RESTful APIs, open APIs, whatever you want to call them. That's the key driver, or the engineering discipline, the solution that's dominant at the moment. There are some places with GraphQL APIs make sense, particularly in heavy data applications. But for the most part, it's about middle tier surfacing up an API that all those different digital layers can tap into easily, in a way that's native to those digital layers now. But actually the brains, the design, the data, and all of that sits behind the API. If we then look at below the API, the middle tier, this is about how does the middle tier talk to the core. The optimal case here would be that actually that would be through APIs as well. But as discussed, sometimes those legacy systems, those older systems that you want to reuse that still have value, but they don't have an API. So you get this idea of direct integration capabilities that might be part of that middle tier. So tapping directly into some of those old systems, maybe directly into the data sources as well. And we're also seeing folks deploying RPA in there as well. So using robots to drive the legacy systems and create the appearance of an API, create the appearance of this integration for use. So this is allows the middle tier. You can see now that the middle tier needs to be quite. There needs to be some intelligence there, some rules in there, so they can translate the API that you want to offer to all of these digital tiers into something that then the core can understand and translate those different interaction mechanisms between the different core systems and hide some of that complexity. So one of the challenges around middle tiers is the exact scope seems to vary by implementation, as we say here. And really that's about what is the problem the insurer trying to solve. And many of those problems sit on the right-hand side of the diagram here. But let's go through the middle and we'll cover that in just a second. So middle tier, minimum viable product. What is what's the basics, the middle bit that goes into that middle tier? APIs, absolutely core to it. If you take one thing away from this, middle tier is about APIs, but it's a bit deeper than that, right? The middle tier needs to have some smarts to it. It needs to have something of a brain in there. So it needs this idea of orchestration, being able to, based on the response from a data enrichment provider, tap into the pricing ecosystem or the claims provider's ecosystem in a different way. There needs to be some business rules in there, some capability to orchestrate things between different participants in the ecosystem. And then, of course, monitoring sits in there as well, something that the non-engineering folks maybe forget, but us in IT wonder about. When you're tapping into a wider ecosystem through a digital means and you're looking for that kind of real-time interaction, you need something that monitors those capabilities. So that's the minimum, right? That's the bare minimum of what I'd want from a middle tier. But let's talk about some of those broader capabilities and problems that insurers are trying to solve in that wider halo. So on the top right there, we've got this idea of distribution networks. And again, this is about tapping into new digital ways of getting customers into the insurance industry. And sometimes that's through blockchain, that's with IoT data, or maybe that's just with a platform that has many of the brokers on it and many of the insurers. Regardless of what it is, the middle tier is about translating things, leveraging that distribution network, and then orchestrating all of the activities that need to happen internally in order to respond to that. And we can say the same thing about pricing, in terms of using data enrichment, using new pricing capabilities in order to come up with the right price for the customer at the right time. Claims providers ecosystem, whether that's repair networks for vehicles or whether that's networks of tradesmen who are repairing properties. This is about orchestrating all of those capabilities that are going on there, and where they're digital, where they are capable of being engaged through a digital manner, doing that through something that maybe sits outside of the core system or the claim system. InsurTech ecosystem and tapping into that, all of those new startups, all of that new capability, that the exciting innovation that's going on. And again, many of those InsurTech only talk APIs. They don't actually talk anything else. The middle tier often being the route to engaging with those as well. On the left-hand side, on the top there, we've got some different examples around data as well. When to leverage a data enrichment ecosystem, when to start tapping into those data providers. But on the other way, when you start to see IoT data coming from the customers and an event has happened, how do you as an organization want to respond to that, and perhaps respond to that automatically, actually? And this is an area where middle tiers or insurers, MGAs are starting to invest in this kind of middle tier in order to start orchestrating the behavior as those IoT events come in as well. AI models, lots of participants in the insurance industry building out AI capabilities and building AI models, but where do you put them so that they can have the impact that you want them to have, whether it's in claims triage, maybe pricing, maybe the way that you respond to distributors. Where do you put that in order to have that effect? And actually, this concept of the middle tier with its orchestration capability, tapping in to those smarts within the AI models, is one solution to doing that as well. And we're also seeing folks in the insurance industry not just buying these large chunks of software. So, a new policy system, a new claims system, a rating system, but actually buying smaller pieces, smaller microservices, maybe just to deal with claims triage, maybe underwriting triage, maybe looking at how the board rows come into the organization, how you respond to that. So again, when you start looking at these smaller assets, these new opportunities, how do you bring them in? How do you integrate them into everything else? And then how do you orchestrate around them so you make the best use of them? And again, this is a place where the middle tier really plays its part. We've already covered RPA and integration schemes on the previous slide. We'll talk about product composition in a couple of slides' time as well. But this gives you an idea of some of the ingredients here as well. And as we look through into, maybe if I just put the slides up there we go. If we look through into the target position, you get this idea of a heterogeneous architecture. It's a big word, isn't it? But an architecture with lots of different moving parts in it. Maybe some old systems, some old data that still works, coupled with this idea around microservices. But this idea of an API that's contributed to by the internal capabilities there in orange, but also by external capabilities there in green. So the bottom left of the diagram there, you can see that maybe other insurers, other MGAs, other participants in the ecosystem are adding their services, their capabilities to your API so that you can better serve your customers. And then, of course, on the other side of the API, you've got the digital side there. So if you think the things below the API as being that core, the things above the API is that digital. So you've got your own channels that you're trying to service, your contact center, the web channel to the direct customer, maybe to the broker, maybe through MGAs. But then you've also got third parties leveraging your APIs, leveraging your capabilities, selling your products through different third party channel systems. There is a digital route as well. There's this key idea here around being an API first insurer, thinking about delivering the API and then that enabling all of those digital capabilities. I remember back in the 2000s, we saw insurers becoming we're an internet insurer. Well, now in the 2020s, we're talking about becoming an API enabled, an API first insurer, or an API first MGA, an API first broker. So increasingly, the heavier middle tier is allowing insurers to compose products into more complete propositions. So this is that box that we saw a couple of slides ago. This idea that actually you can take some of those products that exist in multiple back-end systems that you have, multiple parts of that core, and compose them in different ways. Suddenly you can have a multi-car product, or a whole household product, or a commercial combined product, and offering in different ways. So this isn't particularly new, but the one that's interesting now is this idea of the insurance product is an API. The proposition that you build by composing these things creates a new API that then other folks, maybe a broker portal, maybe the brokers themselves, agent systems, and underwriting desktop can start to leverage that proposition in order to offer a different type of product, which is an interesting capability. And one of the things I wanted to pull out here when we're talking about this is not just about an API gateway. This is about insurance content in a middle layer, delivering new capabilities in an insurance context. This is very much about an insurance middle layer. And we'll hear a little bit from Martin, I'm sure, shortly around some of the capabilities that they have. So they've gone a little further than this, in that their middle layer can actually host products and produce products itself. So actually, if you had something that was entirely new, entirely different, middle layer offers the opportunity to either tap into that InsurTech ecosystem to get that new capability, that new product, or in some cases to host that product itself as well.
Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Martin Krug, General Manager of eBaoTech Americas. This is the third in a series of webinars co-sponsored by eBaoTech and Selling. And today's topic is how to unleash digital with the new middle office. And of course, when we talk about digital, we are talking about digital insurance. For those of you joining us for the first time today, please allow me to provide you with a brief eBaoTech introduction before launching into our discussion. eBaoTech is a global insurance solution company founded 20 years ago, and we currently have offices in 16 locations around the world. With our technology solutions, we serve the P&C, life, and health insurance markets. We have a global footprint of over 200 clients who we serve in over 30 countries around the world. While many of our clients started with us using our enterprise on-premise core solutions such as policy administration, billing, and claim, many are now moving with us to the cloud. To support customers in the Americas, we combine a virtual workforce with a network of global physical delivery centers providing around-the-clock cost-effective support. So, despite the challenges of 2020, we were able to provide continuous service to our clients and didn't experience any major service disruptions. From this slide, you can see we serve a large portfolio of established global brand name insurance clients, as well as insurtechs, channel partners, and e-commerce platforms. So now let's get started. Thank you, Craig, for walking us through your most recent seller report on the insurance middle layer and sharing your insights. Our discussion today about middle office aligns with well-established consumer technology trends. Here are a few recent quotes and observations that highlight how important it is for us to pay attention to the acceleration of e-commerce and digital ecosystem trends. As you can read, many business leaders point out that the COVID situation appears to have substantially accelerated consumer digital behaviors. So, regardless of where you operate in the insurance industry, whether that be consumer, commercial, P&C, life, incumbent, or insurtech startup, the key takeaway is that consumer behavior and the pace of digital adoption is moving faster than ever before. Therefore, you should be considering a middle office or digital core solution. One of the major drivers for middle layer or middle office is participation in the digital ecosystem. As you can see, first, from the business perspective, there are ecosystems that make up your digital insurance marketplace where you sell insurance and provide customer services. Also, from a technology perspective, carriers are looking to leverage the broader set of technology and services that are available in the marketplace, such as AI, IoT, big data, and insurance APIs, to name a few. The challenge is that most typical back-office systems lack the interoperability to work effectively with these new solutions that are available via APIs in the cloud. As part of the leading-edge technology ecosystem, eBaoCloud InsureMO enables your organization to rapidly and cost-effectively build the connections to the latest solutions that enable you to do more business through your insurance ecosystem. Welcome to eBaoCloud InsureMO and Digital Core. InsureMO was launched to the public back in 2016 and today has over 200 customers and handles over 1 million insurance transactions per day on a global basis. The entry point to all our eBaoCloud solutions is the InsureMO web portal. You can find it at www.insuremo.com. The Insurance Middle Office is a platform for insurers, traditional channels, including brokers and MGAs, affinity partners, as well as fintech and insurtech startups, and it can enable use cases for any product or channel. It is built on the latest technology and is certified cloud native by the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. It is the single platform that powers all our latest applications, including our own eBaoCloud Digital Core. Using a microchip analogy, we built InsureMO to serve as the chip to power your insurance ecosystem. What we observe is the back office systems typically bear the workload for the majority of transactions, and yet the technology is typically not geared up to handle the rapid expansion of digital insurance. Whether that be the rate of adding and changing the products, the cost of making the changes, or the ability to connect and scale to support all the various external parties, mobile apps, and customer services, all these factors create a lot of technology complexity that the back office systems simply don't handle very well. The result is that many companies are looking to solutions like InsureMO to address these challenges. Next is a diagram that outlines our InsureMO and Digital Core solutions. InsureMO can be used as a development platform to configure products, create custom apps, and connect to third-party sales channels and your broader business and technology ecosystems. Or you can also use our out-of-the-box Digital Core apps such as policy administration, claim, and billing that are powered by the InsureMO platform. InsureMO is like a giant box of Legos. You can construct from the simple to the very complex. Leverage the out-of-the-box Digital Core, or more often than not, we see clients using some combination of both. InsureMO capabilities include a digital product library, a rating and rules engine, a library of insurance-specific APIs, and an ever-expanding library of third-party APIs. And finally, it provides a set of utilities and cloud administration tools to help manage it all. Content in our digital product library can be copied to a runtime configuration studio and used as a product launch accelerator. Once completed, product configuration can be published along with rating and rules to the runtime engine, making the products available via API. What differentiates InsureMO is that it provides insurance-specific microservice and hundreds of RESTful APIs, not just generic submission, quote, and issue, or claim F&OL, but a library of highly granular APIs that can be orchestrated to create unique customer journeys. In addition to the existing library of insurance-specific APIs, there are additional third-party services and APIs to facilitate services such as text messaging, emails, and payments. Using InsureMO, your organization can easily develop new APIs to connect with AWS or Azure services, or one of the many third-party insurance service providers for things like AI, IoT, or big data. The options today are limitless. You simply need a robust middle office layer to take advantage of them all. Using InsureMO, you can easily and rapidly create a unique customer journeys and experiences using an array of tools. For example, you can create your own custom website and front ends using the latest in digital framework like Angular, or create new front ends or native apps using a number of the low-code tools available in the market, such as Salesforce Lightning, Microsoft Power Apps, OutSystems, or Mendix. For example, while none of us at eBaoTech are Salesforce experts, we were able to create a proof of concept in a matter of days by configuring a product on InsureMO, exposing the APIs, and coding a native app on the Salesforce Lightning platform. With respect to technology, InsureMO is built on the latest cloud-native technology based on microservices, RESTful API architecture, and powered by Kubernetes and Docker. It's built for massive volume, variation, and velocity. It's more than just enterprise scalable, it's internet scalable. In addition to InsureMO middle office capabilities, you can also subscribe to our full suite of digital core apps, including policy administration, claim, billing and collections, and reinsurance. Powered by the same InsureMO technologies, our digital core apps leverage the same microservice, RESTful API architecture, and cloud infrastructure. Digital core apps offer a very powerful combination of out-of-the-box insurance process capabilities, configurability, and connectivity that will help you drive your business forward. Overall, InsureMO and Digital Core apps are very cost-effective, with initial subscription fees starting as low as $3,900 to $7,500 per month, depending on the capabilities and apps your organization requires. You only pay for what you need. This offers a low CapEx and cost-effective model to update legacy systems or launch new and innovative products or services and connect to your digital ecosystem. Our solution is built on the latest technology. InsureMO and Digital Core apps are certified cloud native by the Cloud Native Computing Foundation and are both available on leading cloud services. InsureMO is available on Amazon Web Services, and we are a certified member of the AWS Partner Network. We are also available on Microsoft Azure and certified member of the Azure Marketplace. I would now like to walk you through a few case studies that will provide real-life examples of InsureMO and Digital Core in action. Our first case study is from a U.S.-based Greenfield Specialty Commercial Transportation Risk Retention Group that took place in late 2020. This client was looking for a rapid implementation of cost-effective and state-of-the-art underwriting and policy administration system that could easily be integrated with an existing front-end quote submission system. Our solution is based on InsureMO and Digital Core policy administration hosted on Amazon Web Services. For this client, we implemented two products, auto physical damage for commercial trucking and non-trucking liability. eBaoTech implemented an out-of-the-box Digital Core underwriting and policy administration solution. The solution includes application submission via API from a front office system and the full underwriting and policy administration process, including rate, quote, bind, endorsement, cancellation, and renewal. Using InsureMO Open API architecture, we also integrated into the underwriting workflow the retrieval of the commercial motor vehicle reports from another third-party vendor called Samba Safety, an industry leader in driver risk management. This program was delivered start to finish in late 2020 under pandemic constraints and done 100% remotely. After initial contracting and scoping, using an agile methodology, we did a rapid 8-week MVP, minimal viable product, implementation of the two products across initial 15 states. And we then deployed the additional 35 states and the automated motor vehicle record retrieval process in 4 more weeks. In summary, the client was able to implement a new integrated underwriting and policy administration system, leveraging an existing non-insurance quote submission system while easily integrating with Samba Safety for MVR retrieval into their underwriting workflow. Next, this case study is from Aegon Life India from 2019 and 20. Aegon India partnered with AWS and eBaoTech to build a reusable digital insurance ecosystem in the cloud using a microservice event-driven architecture to support its evolving business. Aegon India implemented an advanced middle office architecture that enabled them to overcome the challenges of their legacy back office systems and to rapidly deploy new products and services through digital channels. Starting in Q1 of 2019, within 6 weeks of signing their InsureMO subscription, they were able to launch some basic online and mobile customer service features via APIs from InsureMO on the AWS cloud. They quickly moved to a mid-year launch of direct sale of life products through MobiKwik, a mobile wallet app, and then Q4 launch of direct sale through Policy Bazaar, an online insurance marketplace. And finally, in Q1 2020, they made products available on Flipkart.com, one of the leading online e-commerce sites in India that's owned by Walmart. In summary, the client implemented a very robust middle office using AWS and InsureMO. This enabled them to significantly expand their presence in the India digital insurance market without first replacing their core system. Note, we actually had the Aegon Life CTO, Dougie Kennedy, as a guest speaker on our first webinar back in August of 2020, where he told the story in greater detail and he shared the details of the advanced middle office architecture implemented. You can still find this video clip out on LinkedIn. The following case studies for anyone on the call working with an InsurTech or in the internal innovation group of an insurance carrier or broker. The following case study describes how we worked with a U.S. InsurTech in 2020 to build a new product proof of concept. In early 2020, we worked with this InsurTech and their digital agency to build a B2C digital sales and claim payment platform proof of concept to sell weather-related event disruption insurance. As part of this program, we implemented an end-to-end purchase path, including submit, quote, issue, and payment collection, based on InsureMO APIs exposed to a custom B2C website. This also included straight-through claim settlement and claim payment processing. This program was unique in that it made use of multiple third-party ecosystem providers, including PayPal, Stripe, Plaid, IBM Weather Channel, and Google Firebase for user authentication. In summary, this program implemented a fully functional POC that can be easily scaled to production. We used an agile project-enabled teams to work through many new and innovative insurance ideas and work 100% remotely during the pandemic conditions. And finally, the InsurTech was able to develop a unique customer journey working with the digital agency, leveraging InsureMO product configuration and APIs to make use of the readily available technology ecosystem. The final middle office use case will be an example where InsureMO supports insurance sales on one of the leading e-commerce sites in India. For this client, we enable common connections to 3 insurance carriers across various lines of business. The InsureMO Product Configuration Studio supports both the life and motor lines of business. Functions provided include new business, policy services, and claim services via APIs embedded in the e-commerce customer journey. And finally, the open API architecture enables connectivity with a large third-party ecosystem. In closing, we appreciate you taking the time to learn more about eBaoTech, InsureMO, and Digital Core solutions today. I hope you take away that InsureMO and Digital Core can provide you with key capabilities required to support digital insurance and deliver to your organization many of the benefits that are outlined in the Celent report on the rise of the insurance middle layer. And we would welcome the opportunity to schedule a meeting to further discuss your business goals and objectives.
Very first question is all right, great. For those who are considering this approach, the insurance companies, brokers, MGAs, or even an InsurTech, what should be their typical starting point to take on this digital insurance middle layer approach?
That's a good question. It varies a little bit by different participants, but I think taking an agile kind of innovation style approach to this makes a great deal of sense. Find a use case that's going to add value, that will prove the value of having this kind of middle layers, middle office, and implement that effectively, right? We heard from Martin earlier that it doesn't need to be expensive. It doesn't need to be a massive investment. But yeah, find a use case, find a problem, solve it with this, and then start. You end up with a good tool there. Start looking for other problems that have similar, would benefit from a similar solution, and keep moving forward from there. I think looking at this as a kind of a boil the ocean exercise where you try to do everything at the same time, that's always a difficult way to implement some of these systems. But Martin, do jump in.
You covered it great, Craig. I mean, I really like the comment about not boiling the ocean. My point of view on this is very similar. Come up with a very discrete use case, something that's going to deliver some business value. It doesn't have to be enormous, but come up with a very discrete use case, be able to, spec out and draw out a timeline when you need to deliver it and when you want to get it done. And then you're able to deliver it via API or through a middle office layer. That's where we've had the best and most success, where we're able to very, hone in on very specific, business problem or business value that you want to capture. And again, start small and then iterate through multiple different steps from there.
All right, great. Thank you.
Awesome.
Moving on to the next question. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go on, Tina. What's the next question?
All right. Okay, we have quite a few, so we have plenty of time too. All right. The next one is, how long will it take for a middle layer solution implementation and integrations with the back office core systems?
Shall I take a stab at that one first, and then you can give some practical examples there, Martin?
Sure.
It really depends, right? So I've seen people implement this kind of solution over a relatively modern system that already has some kind of API, like a SOAP API, or maybe even a RESTful API, but it's just not quite what the insurer needs. And that can be relatively quick, actually, to implement these kinds of solutions over that. I've also seen folks looking at old systems written in COBOL, I-90 style systems, IS 400, and that's much tougher. And that's where people start looking at more fluffy fluffy ways of doing the integration, perhaps getting even robots to drive some of the screens where they can't get to the functionality they're looking for. And obviously that can take longer as well. So there's a little bit of how long is a piece of string, and that it depends on the complexity of the back office system and actually with the use case as well. But typically it can be quite quick. But Martin, I mean, you had some great case studies there. You've probably got some good figures, right?
Right. Yeah. And I think, again, coming up with a very discrete use case and then, time boxing it. We've done 8 weeks where that was for a minimal viable product. We rolled those products out to 15 states. But then we subsequently pulled in the automated API integrations in subsequent phases. And so that's how we're able to do those much quicker. I would say we're able to do in, let's say, 4 to 6 weeks, very specific APIs to the newer technologies that are out there, which you see in many of the insurtechs that are offering or third-party services, or many of, let's say, the traditional insurance services are offering more and more via RESTful API. And that's where we can deliver those very quickly, 4 to 6 to 8 weeks, deliver you that capability. And then over time, you'll, if you have more older legacy back office systems, you can create, more robust integrations into that back office. But again, in integrating very quickly to integrate into the newer technologies. And again, looking at anything that's out in the cloud, offering on AWS or Azure in their marketplaces or in their services, we can do very quickly in a matter of weeks.
Excellent. And I think that's one of the biggest advantages of this approach, faster implementation.
Exactly.
Right. Great, thank you. Go ahead.
But just as far as integration, particularly with the newer technologies or third-party ecosystem vendors, The first question, we'll ask is, where are your API specs and where can we connect to your test environments? And they'll do the same to us. And we provide our API specs and they provide their API specs. And we basically start connecting right away and opening up into their, development environments. And that's typically how that's starting to work. And it works very rapidly. Like we have the technology to support, they'll have technologists to support their integrations, and we can do it very rapidly.
Cool.
Right, great, thank you. Cool. So as a continuation of this, is this approach equally beneficial irrespective of the size and scale of the organization? It is one of the questions, of course, that's been asked. So, irrespective whether it's a regional, local company, be it insurance carrier, broker, MGA, InsureTech, should the benefits experienced, derived, be consistent across the board?
Ooh, that's an interesting one. I think there's a broad set of use cases here, right? So we talked about a variety of those. So, for instance, you're an MGA, you've got an older system, but you want to take advantage of, say, something that's very good at underwriting triage or bordereau management, something that's a problem for your business, takes a lot of time from your people, and there's a clear direct business benefit to that. I think there's a broader, so you get that kind of use case, that small business benefit case there, but there's a broader capability discussion to be had here about being able to, once you have something like this in play, where you can start to talk to, as Martin was just describing, just go to an InsureTech or go to a data provider, go to somebody who's offering a service and ask them for their API and just start plugging it in and start trying it out. That opens up a new level of capability. That means that actually you can go to a different InsureTech every month, integrate them quickly, see whether that adds value. If it doesn't, you haven't lost a great deal. If it does, it's in your ecosystem now, it's in your library. You move on and you do the next one. So there's this sort of almost multiple layers of and this combinatorial explosion of benefit that you can derive from adopting this. But really start out small, prove it with a simple use case, start to learn what you can do with the capability, and then you can grow from there. But Martin, I'm sure you've got some numbers around this as well.
Right. I mean, from our perspective, again, I think you hit it on the head, Craig. It really runs a really broad spectrum of use cases or case studies. We're talking a lot now about starting small and building over time, but we've actually worked with a large $5 billion carrier in Asia to rationalize all their existing policy administration and digital capabilities onto InsureMO and Digital Core. And they basically pulled all their legacy applications and put them on the Digital Core and then exposed them in various different channels for using the InsureMO capabilities. And basically, because they're a multi-line carrier, they had different channels and affinity partners and approaches to selling. And while they use one large digital core, the channels at which they connect to vary greatly. And so that's where the middle office enabled them to have a lot of agility and treat, motor different than personal accident, then different than small middle market insurance for commercial customers. We do that all the way down to the InsureTech startup scenario that you saw. They had a minimal amount of funding, but they had a very innovative idea, and we were able to give them a proof of concept. The key thing around that proof of concept is it's not just a proof of concept. Once they decide to scale and go live with their products, they can actually turn the switch and turn that on and actually sell insurance at scale. I like to tell people that if you're looking to launch a new product line within your company, that's often a use case that we get. We're the quickest path in between sort of idea to scale, and we can launch those products very quickly.
That's great. That's a pretty powerful statement from idea to concept, especially right in the context of digital transformation and innovation. So that's great. Thank you. Thank you to both of you. Following up with our next question, the technology stacks spans a range of process domains, customer digital journey, insurance microprocesses, that includes issue code, convert code to policy, etc. I think this is more for Martin, I guess, but the question is, what system owns the process? Is it the legacy core? It's the eBao core? Is it the middle layer, the front-end app?
Typically, from our perspective, if you're exposed, depending on your use case, it ends up being that middle office layer versus the core layers that really facilitate the product configuration, the rating, and the rules, and then interactions with your affinity partner, digital channel, whether that's a mobile app, your website, your mobile app, or a third-party website or mobile app. But it typically then becomes the InsureMO middle office that's the control point.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Is that how you? Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I'll jump in there if that's all right.
That's all right.
I mean, part of the issue is, I remember when we started to get a few channels, right, like contact center, agents, web, and you could manage that. But now it's just this plethora of digital channels, and the logic's got to go somewhere. And historically, it went in the core, but now we're starting to see folks leveraging their core, leveraging a partner's API, leveraging an InsureTech capability, and you have to have that orchestration somewhere, and it typically lifts up out of the core into this middle layer. But yeah, you don't want to have those kind of processes being owned in front of the API. Yeah, you'll be replicating them everywhere.
With respect to that, depending on how long you've been in the industry, we started off as like direct to, looking to expose policy administration systems direct to consumer. Then we wanted to go multi-channel, and then we called it omni-channel. And really, over the time, the technology has really continued to advance and really taken us to where we are, and we'll call it an ecosystem. And I would say it truly is the ecosystem approach today, because the technology is really advanced or caught up to the concept of distributing through as many channels as potentially possible, and you really lower the cost to distribute, connect to those channels, and it makes it economically viable to sell through that. Whereas I would say before really the advent of cloud microservices, we really sort of had to take the 80-20 rule, and that, we really had to go look at those channels where 80% of the business was generated, and the cost of integration with those channels was so high that, we focused on those, and then we didn't have any of these other channels.
Yep.
So again, the cloud technologies have brought that cost of connecting down dramatically.
That's correct. Yep. Well, thank you for that. I think this has been covered through some of the questions, but it'll be helpful to bring it all together through one question that we have. What challenges do you usually face by integrating the middle layer solution with the back office core system? Craig or Martin, either of you.
Challenges, I think, and actually the previous question kind of covered some of this. You start getting into some interesting questions around domains of responsibility. So what do you want the middle layer to be doing? What do you want the core back office system to be doing? And then you've got some of those other challenges we were talking about in terms of actually technically, how do you tell the back office to do something, that core system to do something, and then when it's done it, how do you get the result out of that system? Sometimes that can be non-trivial. So yeah, there's a couple of issues there. Which one is responsible for it, and which one's owning it, mastering that capability, and then which one, and then actually the practicalities of doing that integration. Do you have anything else, Martin?
No, I think you covered it pretty well there. I think it sort of comes down to the age of the technology that's on your back end. Typically, the older it is, I would say you probably delegate more of your control into the middle office. You get into some challenges when it's kind of not as old, and then you want to determine where you want to put the points of control.
Yeah.
And then there's a number of different factors that can drive where you put that point of control. Scalability, flexibility, agility, whether you actually do have that in your back office systems.
Great, thank you. We're almost at top of the hour. We'll try and fit in two more questions.
Excellent.
This question is, my new PaaS comes with an API? Can't I just use that? Do I need a middle office if I have a reasonably new core system?
I think there's a really interesting thing that's happening in the insurance industry at the minute, where the entities in the insurance industry are starting to differentiate themselves in the market through their API. So historically, it used to be through your agent network, and then we got into the .com era, and it was through your website and how easy you were to work with. But now, actually, the API is part of that differentiation. It's the face of the organization. So just taking whatever comes for free with whatever you've bought recently feels like it's at odds with that. If you have a look at things like Studio.chart, some of the APIs that parts of the Access Lab have put out there, we could talk about Liberty Mutual and a bunch of the other insurers out there that are starting to really push out their APIs and differentiate through that. Martin, what's your view? Would you just take the API that came with your core?
Our digital core, definitely you can take the, again, our digital core is built on the same microservices and all the APIs and capabilities that are, the foundation is InsureMO. So again, we basically will offer hundreds of granular level APIs. Again, like I said, not just rate, quote, bind. And then not only can you expose a quote or bind, but also, like I said, you could create your own customer journeys. So you can expose many different granular APIs and services, open to that front office or exposed front end to the distribution channel. And again, it all depends on, if you do have a RESTful API, it depends on how you're running it in your infrastructure, whether it's cloud-based and, fully scalable versus more geared towards your traditional back office type transaction processing. Again, from our perspective, if you launch it, even if you use our digital core, if you launch your API on the InsureMO platform, you can run APIs for combined small middle market commercial insurance, which is a relatively low transactional volumes, but you can also, let's say, do very high quoting, hundreds of thousands per hour, if you will, with a very low bind rate. And that requires a different infrastructure footprint. So again, we know from our perspective, again, that's what I said, we're more than enterprise scalable, we're internet scalable. So we have one client again where we've done well over 50 million transactions in a single day. Granted, a number of those were probably 50 million, 40 were microservice transactions, but 5 to 10 million were probably what we consider standard insurance products, personal accident, home, mobile phone warranty.
Right. So almost the top of the hour. We'll take one last question before we sign off. I do understand people have hard stop. Can you just talk about the cost implications of this approach relative to the time taken to implement? And I think more so it becomes relevant when there's a legacy play here, when people are dealing with their legacy. Is it more cost effective with this approach, or maybe not?
I'll do a short 30 seconds then. There is value from replacing a very old legacy system, or even kind of a modern legacy system that's 20 years old, with new technology. But you spend a lot of your time migrating things and actually not adding new functionality, right? You're getting back to the position you were in before you started to do the replacement. So you spend a lot of effort getting back to where you were, and then you can start to increase that speed. And I think and putting in a middle office, particularly where you've got those small use cases, you want to start innovating, getting that test and learn behavior and that new culture. You can just get up and running quicker.
Right. I would say if we go back to, if we go back to, I think you hit on a good point on new culture. You can sit, I think Dougie Kennedy brought that up in his first webinar, and really taking this middle office approach and microservices, they had to bring in a different mindset and a different culture to deliver the programs, kind of make them into smaller, more discrete projects, but also tie them to very specific business value. And then that's the key thing. And so in that respect, it can be very cost effective because you're doing small pieces in short sprints and delivering discrete business value and showing results. And then from an IT perspective, you're showing results to the business that you can deliver and this technology works.
That's great. Absolutely. I think that should be music to everybody's ears. Delivering quick value. Well, with this, we do come to the end of this webinar. We really hope all of you found this useful. Thank you again for joining us for this conversation. If you have any questions for Craig, Martin, or me, our email IDs are right here. You can always drop us a note. I will share the video recording of this with you, so look out for that email. And thank you again for joining us today. Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Martin, for bringing it together. And everybody, thank you. Stay safe and take care.